Voice Division is made possible by a residency grant from the College of Liberal Arts Engagement Center, also known as the Hub, and the Center for Holocaust Studies. We begin our presentation by showing the artwork of 8 participants created during the first residency at the Hub. The participants hail from all over the world. Storytellers from Argentina, from Peru, from Mexico, from Iran,
Zimbabwe, Ukraine,
South Korea, Myanmar, and the United States. The next part of the video documents the collaborative process Voice Division uses to create each piece of art.
Rita Morris was my student in 1999 who came up with the name Voice Division. We were doing an undergraduate research project with her, and I told her I'm going to start a project, and I couldn't think of what to do with. So I said, people telling stories and then turning them into visuals. And she went, well, that's Voice Division.
The term Voice Division, the voice is the voice of the storyteller. And the vision, which is, of course, that's a visual word, is the piece that finally emerges from it. It was begun by David Feinberg, who was a professor in the Department of Art here. And what it does is it provides an opportunity for people who aren't necessarily artists, who have lived and survived a traumatic situation, sometimes personal, sometimes political, to create out of their story and their experience and their memory. It can begin with just a few marks on a canvas that are arbitrary and then starting to find meaning as people discuss elements.
Yeah, Luda, what do you think? If this is a little bit more like white, my head is like white, this and then that.
Yeah, but it's not clean white also here, you know what I mean? Like this is not clean white here.
It would also relate to this one a little more.
And the thing that's exciting about this process is that you never know exactly where it's going.
This is scary. Who thought of painting a black? So that was unexpected too.
You may have one idea to start with and some small move, and suddenly something takes on significance, an association is made, and it grows very organically.
But it's also taking the outside opinions of my fellow students and David to look at how those things combine without really knowing one another, to create these unforeseen moments that are often termed as wow moments.
Meeting David was a wow moment for me. I was his student 40 years ago. I was 18 years old. I took one class with him. I was a new immigrant here, and he was probably the first person that acknowledged what I was doing. 30-some years later, which is 8 years ago, I joined him, and he was using the language of healing in his art class.
So by seeing your own reflection in the mirror, particularly these mirrors, even these little pieces here, you become part of the work of art itself. You become involved. You're not just looking at something passively, but it's looking back at you and you finding yourself in the painting itself.
The colors and shapes that they used in their pictures were things I've never experienced before.
All I did was play with color and watch how it mixed, and then I have realized that my mom told me that she has this gift of being able to see a color and remember it exactly. And so if I saw this color, I could probably go over there and duplicate it without taking the color with me.
And it opened up this whole world of, gosh, you could do that? You could put this color next to that, you could use these colors in a way that I never dreamt of. And so it's opened up my whole world.
The frames, he's made these himself and cut them and mortared them. And to get things going, oftentimes he'll say, let's come up with 5 ideas that you might want to do with this, that you could be possible things, possible moves. And then he'd say, think of the one that you like the most and the one you like the least. Okay, let's toss those 2 out. Because the one that you like the most is probably something that's sort of your formula, right? The one you want the least, you wouldn't want to work on. But the other 3 are interesting in the middle, and then maybe choose the one that's the most challenging out of those 3 and try to work with that, because that will open up something new. So that's a very David Feinberg sort of invitation, and his expression about unexpected significance arising where something will suddenly take on a lot of meaning and become very important.
This thing is making this look good because of the relationship of white to white, you know, and the more you cover and put more information on here, you destroy that relationship. So it's very important that all the pieces are tied together, not just to one thing, but to everything. And that's the key to making art, is the idea that a work has presence. In other words, you feel something when you look at it, and it can't be described in words. And so that's what we try to do in Voice to Vision. The collaboration, if it's successful, is nobody knows what part anybody had in the work. As the idea gets processed, it grows and grows and grows. And after a while, you lose track of who said what that caused the moves in progression. And our artwork goes on for anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half. Somebody moved something accidentally and nobody talked about it. And everybody goes, wait a second, what's that? And that's the wow moment that happens. And usually that's the one that wins. A complete accident.
I like this here.
Yeah, right there.
The interesting thing about the one from Argentina, Jorge Duarte, he was in Argentina almost the whole time. And so we were talking over Zoom. At times he would do drawings and would send pictures of them or scans of them, and we would take them and then transfer them onto the board, right? So it was sort of action from a distance.
I think you should sign it over here.
Uh-huh.
Right.
It's
like from February to
through the summer.
Through the summer. We did it through Zoom.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow. We never did it before. This is the first time.
Wow.
I worked with a group of amazing contributors, artists, activists, educators, and leaders who helped me to create work addressing the historic genocide of Ukrainians, the Holodomor, and the modern genocide perpetrated by Russia and its brutal war against Ukraine. The idea was to have the piece that would reflect the tragedy of the genocide of Ukrainians that's called Holodomor, which means death by starvation, from 1932-33 and the ongoing genocide of Ukrainians that's happening as a result of Russian aggression in Ukraine. So that's the idea, to connect two tragic events in Ukrainian history at the hand of the same imperial power, if you will, which is formerly was Soviet Union and now it's Russian Federation.
So yeah, I personally think Luda is like bringing real destruction that's happening right now. That energy was here. Whereas Badiv he's lived a lifetime of acceptance of so much hostility and his resilience, his family and what they have had to go through, so much to let go of, and yet still rise up and have such a positive view of humanity still.
In fact, this is one of it's close to what I wear and I like it, blue color. Blue color is my favorite. Even in making a tie at the beginning, gold and blue was one of the successful color in tie business.
We decided David got this like a volleyball shape, and we kept symbolically that became significant for the piece. Also, the Baha'i faith, so much of it is about bringing everybody together, and so that circle is very important to him. A whole bunch of these look like Farsi writing. So this one in particular reads as you in Farsi and you also in English, which is kind of strange. But so that kind of led us to write Baha'i here, which is his faith, and kind of in a way his piece talking, like expressing itself, verbalizing here I am.
And as I explained, we are peace-loving nation. As the Baha'i, we like unity for the whole world. No prejudice. For us, there is no difference between men and women. Equality, which started in Iran 180 years ago.
And that symbolically to me was really important to kind of represent like Iran belongs to Baha'is too.
My life in Rhodesia, in essentially a racist society, was one where I had no real contact throughout my childhood, from the age of 5 to 18, with any black children at all. So I had a very narrow perspective, and I inherited, if you like, the attitudes of the other white people who were living in Rhodesia with me. So I was able to extrapolate that then to my experience in South Africa as well. When I was in Rhodesia, one of my friends in high school was a Jew who had a more liberal attitude than I had, and he eventually introduced me to the idea that I could actually engage with black people. And when I went to South Africa, another Jewish person, Leon Joffe, whose name is written in Hebrew here, he gave me a book to read called King's Blood Royal. That's the story of a white man living in Minnesota who finds out that he has some black blood in him, and he gets discriminated against and eventually loses his job and his family as a result of it. That story resonated with me and showed me the absurdities and insanity of racism. So this piece was then done with a way of painting which I'd never really used myself, and a circle of black marks really to distinguish the difference between the white and black realms that I had been acquainted with, and the two never engaged. And the story here really is of how my consciousness was awakened by this book and my experience in South Africa.
And these are more like our family. When we crossed the Thailand border, we met with the Thai Royal Army, but we didn't get arrested because we have a passport, but even we don't have a visa to cross that. When they saw our passport, they just let us go. It's very, how to say, unusual. Normally they just arrest and they send it back to the, to the country. So like this is a terrifying moment and also our lucky moment at the same time. But yeah, the terrifying means that they are pointing, these soldiers, Thai soldiers are pointing us, pointing our family with a gun, including my son. So we all have to be knee down and like this. So in Myanmar, like in my home city, like in Yangon, we have the kind of like landmark. Big landmark is Shwetakong Pagoda. So yeah, it's more like the military and the religions are they combine together, working together, and to suppress. Even the whole pagoda is coated with gold, but for me it's like kind of like it's kind of like fragile. There is some crack inside the system, and these are like sometimes right now the military jet fighter also bombing their own pagodas, in the area who are against them. And for us, like this is my son. He paint like he liked the Spider-Man, and he just paint a color of Spider-Man. It's kind of like we escape from these every tragic things, miracle, like a miracle. Even they try to catch us with hand, but we escape like a Spider-Man.
Because Japan is our very next door neighbor. Countless they invaded us. We never once invaded them, but they kept invading. Also, they never said sorry. So still, even in South Korea, they are debating. But I think we should learn from history. Otherwise, the bad cycle keep going. So I want to draw the victim, and you are not alone. We miss you. We are thinking about you.
One example would be up here. The document up there is part of a court document from 1969, where I was a plaintiff in a discrimination case against the city of Minneapolis's fire department, which at that time was segregated. And we won that case to desegregate the Minneapolis Fire Department so they were more tolerant and user-friendly with non-white communities. And the irony with that document put into that space, which was not there when we began, is that is for the state of Minnesota, and the outline of that document looks a lot like the state of Minnesota. That's an example of this wow moment that was unforeseen, but kind of happened all by itself because of the combined influence of my fellow students, my vision, and the tutorage of David Feinberg.
I believe that one of the most important things for me to be a part of Voice Division is our academic, artistic, and natural alliance that we formed since 2015. For Voice Division and for the Spanish and Portuguese department, this alliance has been very fruitful because we connected an entire continent, Latin America, with a movement created by Voice Division through the years. And that connection has been very fruitful in the sense that we connected theater, literature, the languages with art.
I think it's important that this project gives voice to people who can express their feelings about the tragic events that sometimes they don't have a chance to process. I believe I'm the first Ukrainian representative, and in Minnesota we have people from so many different countries that lived through events, a history of mass atrocities and genocides. And so it's important that they have their voices heard.
It's not officially an art therapy, project, but de facto, that's a big chunk of it. So there's you might call it an arc of hope that comes out of this, and the people find it an experience of growth.
Voice of Vision is trying to educate the public on how to look at art.
And so this conversation provides the openness and the space for that to unfold.
David, we're gonna go. So we're gonna stop here, go under, and then pick it up here, right? This is gonna be green, and go under.
Let's see. I think
should be gone.
I think this should go over.
Over, okay.
Yeah, and that should
And then go under.
because it'll pick up. This
Oh,
is
should it?
this is heading toward that, so it'll pick up easy. That's why I wanted to talk this over.
It is a surprise and a kind of revelation oftentimes.
What I learned is by doing voice division is how much I didn't know about the world. When I'm a professor at the U, I'm supposed to know more than the average person about the world. And as I met different people from different cultures, all of a sudden I became a historian.
This has taught me the universality of humanity that exists in every group. And working collaboratively is a way to let go of our own preconceived ideas and actually listen to somebody else's perspective.
Biggest thing I learned from that process is like, try to be more simple and try to be more honest and try to be more open, and tell your own story.
And let the young people learn about the history. Yeah, because if we don't tell the truth, no one tells the truth.
And we're not interested in how technically excellent a person is who's telling a story. Sometimes the most naive marks or drawings that can be stick figures can be the most expressive.
Well, you don't have to know anything about art. If a mark moves a person, it doesn't matter. There's no such thing as bad drawing. That's a prejudice based on a cultural indoctrination that people have when they're young, and therefore, unless it's done this way, it's not any good. Well, these are the last 8 paintings that we did when we started the Hub. There's 93 other artworks since 2002 that we've donated to the Center for Holocaust and Genocide Studies.
And again, it's easy to remember the worst things, the fact that the process oftentimes brings up some small but very important, significant redemptive moments where somebody's kindness made a huge difference is very healing for many people and cathartic. And each one of these is a kind of adventure that just begins with a few basic strokes, a few basic ideas, maybe some abstract elements, and things come to the surface. And what's often called unexpected significance, something that doesn't seem very important, suddenly takes on a meaning and becomes a hook. Looking back, suddenly something that we didn't realize was really important at the time suddenly becomes important, and often in these works become a kind of testimony and a memorial, but also a pathway for people for healing. And it's been a transformational experience for many people.
I guess it would really have to come back to the collaborative nature of people bringing up their ideas and talking to each other about them. Because as an artist myself, we often do really work in isolation, and it's just us and our canvas. And so doing art work collaboratively with other people was really the standout.
And I think what David and I realized when we first started working together is that despite the fact that we have really different art backgrounds, because he has an artist background and I'm a lawyer and a theologian, that we spoke the same language. I think we understood that there was a kernel of substance in everything that we were doing. That there was a way that people came together and were able to talk about something that was very difficult through this medium, and that in doing so, it created a community as well.
I'm just curious, what do you think is the underlying thing when it comes to that one thing that ties you together? Is it community, bonding, or is there some collaboration, relationships, or what is your thought?
Love.
You've heard some very powerful and personal stories. These stories are who each of you are. And whenever you give a presentation to an audience, wouldn't it be great if you started your introduction with these stories? And I think that the audience will be very empathetic to listening to what else you have to say. And this is the way we should do it. Rather than reading all your credentials, which a lot of times puts people to sleep.
So this goes back to David's point about empathy and that wow. I think when that man walked into that space and saw the artwork on the wall, met the survivors that the stories came from, and then heard Murray express himself in that way openly in this big room full of people, he had to sit there and really think about what his person was, where his beliefs, that bias, that intrinsic bias that we all carry with us, where it's coming from, and how to change that. So I really think that collaboration doesn't just start and end with the storyteller. It doesn't start and end with the artists that do the artwork, and it doesn't end with the artwork itself. That artwork lives on and it breathes. It has life to it.
She comes and knocks on the door, and in the middle of filming, we were filming, and we had about 15 people in the room, and we were working on a painting. And she comes in and says, "Oh, I'm sorry. You know." And I said, "Come in." And then we asked her, "Can you draw horses?" And she goes, "I think so." And then we got to go and draw horses. She had no break or no introduction. So pay more attention to the capturing the unknown rather than projecting what people like in your artwork.
Following the long tradition of collaborative projects, David Feinberg, Voice to Vision, and I, Luis Ramos Garcia, from the State of Ibero-American Studies series, has been working together since 2015, supported by the Grand Challenges Research Project and the Human Rights Initiative Grant.
Truth must be found, not contrived or preconceived. Seeking truth is the way to originality. The only true thing a person has is their unique perception of the world. Working as the longest-serving art teacher at the University of Minnesota has been quite a ride. Every one of the 5 decades at the university was like living in a different world. A crazy roller coaster ride through time, sometimes being compared to bumper cars and other times being close to the stars on top of the Ferris wheel. I wouldn't change a thing. It was the best education in understanding the evolving world and its values for good or bad. I wish to thank the University of Minnesota for giving me the academic freedom to pursue my childhood dream of doing art for my entire life and being respected by the institution and the Minnesota community. What more could a kid from Brooklyn ask